Hey everybody, this is graphic designer Roberto Blake of robertoblake.com helping you create something awesome today. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about whether or not you need to go to college in order to be a graphic designer. Now, the short answer to this is no, yes, and maybe. So why is it no, yes, and maybe? Well, the reason is you have to examine your motives for going to school as a graphic designer. There are reasons why, if you have specific motives or intentions behind why you want to go to school, that it may not be the best overall choice for you one way or the other. And if you have other goals, then maybe it's absolutely the right choice. And then there's a gray area in terms of whether it's the right choice based on what your goals, needs, values, and situation is. Now, you guys already know that my personal position is that you don't need to go to college today to be a successful graphic designer. Most of the advice you're getting from people who say you absolutely need to go to college to be a successful graphic designer are people who are speaking from their own personal experience only, and the fact that academia was very good to them throughout their life and throughout their career, and that's fine. I don't take anything away from that or away from their experience. However, just because that was your experience a decade or two ago doesn't mean that that will translate to being someone's experience today. The world is very different. It also means that just because the circumstances that made that a good choice for you were what they were, doesn't mean that the circumstances of an individual today match up to that and that your experience is still relevant to them. So that's what I want to speak to with regard to that. But we already know that that's my position, and I'll drill down into it later in the video. Let's talk about some reasons you should consider going to college for graphic design. Now, I want to preface this and lead off with the fact that just because you want to be a graphic designer doesn't mean that you should get a degree in graphic design. I'm of the opinion that because of online learning and because of self-discipline and the fact that your portfolio is going to be the judgment of your value as a graphic designer, that if you're going to get a degree and you need the optics of a degree for whatever reason, that you should go for something other than graphic design and then just take graphic design classes as electives or audit them. And here's my reasoning behind that. When you interview for a job as a graphic designer, especially if you interview with a creative director or an art director, they're not interested in your GPA. They're not interested in where you went to school. For the most part, that's going to be true maybe 90% of the time. Now, if you're working for a major company or trying to work for a major company with a big corporate structure, that might be different because you may not be interviewing with the person that you're going to work for. You might be interviewing with an HR person, a hiring manager, what have you. And that's a very different situation. But if you're going to work directly at an ad agency, and it's a medium to small ad agency, which is probably going to be the case if it's your first job just getting out of college, then the degree in graphic design is not going to play a role there. However, you might need a degree to get through the door because of filtering or job descriptions or whatever. So maybe you get a degree in something else. Maybe you get a degree in digital media and communications. Maybe you get a degree in marketing. Maybe you get a degree in something more general like business, which is always respected. Maybe you go for a degree in fine arts if you're more inclined to that, but then you want to apply things commercially and get into the advertising world. Maybe you go to fine arts because maybe you can learn all the graphic design stuff, but you can't learn things like illustration, and maybe you want to get into magazines or editorial where that will be useful, or maybe you want to go into fashion, or maybe you want to go into, just other areas where the fine arts education and the skill set there might be more useful to you, just because you don't have the ability to teach yourself that, but you have the ability to teach yourself graphic design, so you go for that profession, you leverage that, but then you get a skill that you don't have, and you still have a degree that's applicable, and now you've expanded your range and what you can offer. So I would recommend that if you're going to be a graphic designer, you don't necessarily need a degree in graphic design. You can go marketing, you can go fine arts, you can go business, you could even go something IT related, you could go computer science if you feel you want to balance that out and maybe have design and programming under your belt. But again, it just depends on your personality, and you have to decide what skills can't I learn on my own and leverage the education that way so that I get what I'm paying for, since I could learn all this graphic design stuff for free maybe and still take electives for the stuff that I don't know, etc. So that's my advice on that and how you decide, well, maybe I go to college because I have to. Maybe it's the filtering for the jobs and you're afraid of that and you don't want to try to get around it, which I'll give advice on. Maybe there's something cultural to where your parents are insisting that you go to college, and if they're going to subsidize that, if they're going to pay for you, then great, take the free ride to college, or if you have scholarships or what have you. But I'm going to give some more direct personal advice. If you have parents who are insisting you go to college and take out student loan debt that you're going to be paying down for the next 10 years, and they're insisting on it for whatever reason, and they're not paying for it, they're not subsidizing, I would say that if you don't believe in the value of it, to push back against that, resist the optics, and maybe sacrifice some of the respect there in order to have a better control over your situation, your finances, and the direction of your career and your education. Because at the end of the day, you have to live with this. You have to live with the fact that maybe because you took out the student loan debt, you're more desperate for a job and you take a lower paying salary than what you actually could get or deserve, or you take the first job offer out of fear of the market and so on. And student loans take away a lot of your leverage in negotiation because of the financial burden. When you have the ability to walk away from a job, you've got more leverage there. But if you have crushing student loans debt, you're not going to be willing to walk away from any opportunity. So I would just keep that in mind. Some other reasons to consider going to college as a graphic designer is maybe you live somewhere that doesn't necessarily have a need for graphic design, doesn't value it appropriately, doesn't have a lot of advertising and marketing considerations, is not a business hub. Maybe you're in a small town or a small country. Maybe you use the opportunity to go to college and go away for school to get yourself into a different environment and the place that you want to work for the next 10 or 20 years. That's what I would say if you're coming from that background. School is a great opportunity to get out of your current environment, be around a different culture of people that maybe share your values or your ambition, be in a city where there are companies that are going to be able to trade on your skills and pay you appropriately for them. So I would say that that's a really good reason to go if it means you can change your geography and you don't necessarily want to live where you are right now. I would say that college is a good avenue for doing that and making it work and building the connections that you need to sustain that and build infrastructure. And my last reason for actually going to design school is maybe your social economic status means that you don't have access to the hardware and the software tools for this industry, and that will be your best way of being able to attain them, either free or affordably. Colleges have great discount programs for students who want to buy the software for themselves. In some cases, they can get it for you a lot cheaper, and you have free access to it in the computer lab and in the classroom. So those are some opportunities you might want to take advantage of. If you don't have a situation where you can do it on your own or someone can do it for you, then school is a great opportunity to get access to resources, not just information, but actual tangible resources that you can use to be more successful. So I would say that those reasons and those motives are appropriate for saying yes to going to college as a graphic designer. So let's look at the opposite end of that. Let's look at some reasons why you don't need to go to college in order to be a successful graphic designer. So there are a lot of resources available on the internet today. And before I even get into YouTube and Udemy and lynda.com and all of that stuff, let me say this. The idea that you need to go to design school because you need the structure is just the same thing really as saying that you don't have the discipline to do it yourself. And I'm not trying to be harsh or mean about that, but seriously, what is the school quote-unquote structure? It's the fact that there's an outlined curriculum. Great. You could Google the curriculum for any graphic design school for the most part, get a PDF of that syllabus for any course. The instructors provide those for free, and then you could just say, I'm going to set a schedule. I'm going to wake up at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., whatever it is, every day and spend this many hours studying this. Oh, here's the required reading list. Great. I'm going to download all of these books from Amazon and buy them, or I'm going to go to my local library and see what they have that's similar and check that out, or I'm going to order them from Barnes & Noble. Whatever you're going to do, you could get the required reading list, you could get the syllabus, you could set yourself a schedule, and you could sit there and you could learn all of this stuff on your own and probably at an accelerated pace because you're not having to deal with other people as a distraction. So if you're disciplined, you could learn everything that a college has to offer, get the same curriculum, and then the question becomes, well, I don't get the experience of the professors. That's where things like YouTube come in. That's where you can reach out to people in social media, and that's where also networking with working designers in your local area comes into play. Because while I'm not taking anything away from anybody teaching graphic design at the college level, there's a difference between someone doing it academically versus the people who are doing it day to day, day in, day out for a company or for clients or both or what have you, and picking their brain and getting direct answers and real world advice is going to accelerate things for you versus the academic aspect of that. And then there are still professors who are putting lectures and things online right now for free. Then you have working graphic designers like myself, Stephen Looney, Sean Barry, Aaron Draplin. You have all these people communicating their experience and their advice of working in the real world on YouTube for free, and also in places like Udemy and Lynda and Skillshare and Skillfeed and How Design University. I mean, there's a lot of information that's either free, extremely affordable, or cheap, at least hundreds, if not thousands of dollars cheaper than any individual college course if you need advice from actual people in the field with experience versus just learning from books and the internet on your own. So you have every opportunity to replicate the college experience with very few exceptions right there in the, right in your own home, your living room, whatever. You could do that if you wanted to, if you have the discipline. Now, not everyone has that discipline and they feel they need the structure. But the other thing is, if you don't have that discipline, this industry is going to be very hard on you, because in this industry, it's constant chaos, shifting priorities, and you're going to have to climb the ladder of that chaos if you want to be successful. And I hope you appreciate the Game of Thrones reference there. But that's what it is. That's what life as a graphic designer is. I never get to adhere to my schedule. Like, out of 7 days a week, I never get to adhere to the schedule that I wake up and set. Something always changes. An email or a phone call changes it. It happens 100% of the time. And that's just what it's going to be. So, just take that with a grain of salt and understand that the structure that school provides might be what you need to learn, but don't use it as a crutch, because when you have to go into the real world, that structure is going to be ripped out from under you. The other thing is cost. It's extremely expensive to go to college for graphic design or for anything in general. Even if you go to community college, your education is still going to be around between $3,000 and $6,000 that you may or may not have or be able to pay back. And if you go through traditional education in terms of a four-year school, it's usually going to be between $20,000 and $30,000. So between that amount of time and 2 to 4 years of your life, you could have been investing that money in yourself. You could have been making that amount of money per year, even if you were freelancing at making $600, $700 a month. You would probably break even or be profitable compared to the investment of going to school, and you would have real-world experience, references, and a portfolio on top of that. If you can do both, I highly recommend doing both. But just keep that in mind, that going out there, going solo, freelancing while you learn, and taking advantage of free resources and more affordable resources, you have a better chance of breaking even on the investment of your education versus the other way around. And if you still feel you need to go to school, you could supplement it with individual courses at a community college, or do a 2-year degree at a community college and then offset your cost that way. Still get an education. Maybe it's not the optics of a 4-year degree, but again, I don't believe that the filtering works the way people think it does, because I'll talk about that in my updated How to Get a Job as a Graphic Designer video. But the way people are going about jobs is the same way that salesmen used to go about cold calling, and in 2015, that's dead. So if you think just putting in an application and meeting the requirements is enough to land you the job, you're sadly mistaken, and I'll correct that in another video. But yes, where you can, offset the cost, because cost is the biggest barrier and resistance to people wanting to go to college in general, let alone graphic design school, especially with all the numbers of college graduates not able to find work or find work in their field or industry, and then having all that crushing student loan debt. A lot of people forego it and try to learn things themselves because of that specifically, and I would recommend that. I would recommend that you either learn it yourself through online resources, and I'll have links to all the stuff I mentioned in the description below, or you offset it with community college, where that's individual classes, or going a 2-year degree at a much lower cost, and then not leveraging the degree and the optics of that, but leveraging your education appropriately and the networking opportunities that you did get, what have you. So let's go into the maybe territory. There's a gray area of, well, do you have a better chance of getting a job if you have a degree versus not? And I say this is a gray area because everyone in academia who's done it, and a lot of people from the older generation will insist that the degree is what's going to get you the job. And in this industry, that's not strictly true. Now, I know that you're looking at job descriptions that say, oh, requirement bachelor's, requirement bachelor's. There's this thing called nepotism, and I'm not a fan of nepotism, but it is a reality, so you have to deal with it. And what nepotism comes down to, it's the whole adage of, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And it's absolutely true. Cold calling your way into an interview means you're going to have to deal with the filter and the degree and all of that stuff. But if you've been networking and building relationships and you're leveraging that, whether you went to college or not, and then you end up with your interview that way, it's still up to you to deliver and impress the person and show them that you're qualified. And the thing is, it just means that because you weren't screened out, you didn't fail to get to the interview process due to a lack of a degree. That's how you circumvent the degree being a filter to the job buffer. Now, the other thing is you could choose to not necessarily work for companies that have that requirement, that are judging you on something other than your portfolio. Because at the end of the day, it should be about the work you can produce, the results that you have done, and the value that you can create. And that's the strong point you need to pitch on. It's what you should be hired for. And if someone hires you for your degree instead of your results, they're setting you up for failure anyway. Or you can't expect necessarily for that business to be wildly successful or give you a lot of opportunity, because it means that they're valuing credentials and paperwork. And if you want to play that game, fine, but you should really be playing the game of your talent. So that's just my advice there. So if you're going to interview with a creative director, it's going to be all about your portfolio. So if you go in there with a 4-year degree, but then you only have 12 pieces in your portfolio of student work, you're probably not going to get the job in spite of your degree. Versus someone who wowed someone that was else in the company, that made a formal introduction and got someone else to interview, and then has 40 pieces in their portfolio and they're all fantastic. Obviously that person's going to get the job over you, despite the fact, well, I went to school for 4 years and I had a degree. It's like, okay, great. You went to 4 years of school and you got a degree. Did you get yourself on the cover of Advanced Photoshop magazine? Well, no. Okay, great. Did you, do this billboard for a charity? Well, no. Okay. It's about, again, your results, the value you can create, and how you demonstrate that you are accomplished. And 4 years of a degree, that is an accomplishment. I'm not taking away from that, but it's not an accomplishment that adds to the bottom line of a business. And a job interview is about that. It's about, tell me how you help me make more money, because I'm going to be paying you a considerable amount of money. I need you to make me 10, 20, 100 times that money for me to be interested. Show me that that's going to happen here. Convince me. And that's the salesmanship part of it. Again, whole nother video. So we've covered why you should think about going to graphic design school, some reasons why you might reconsider going to graphic design school, and some reasons why it may or may not work out for you if you have a degree and you think that that's the golden ticket to a job in the industry. Now, I know some of you will have different opinions about this and you'll still have questions, so make sure you're leaving that in the comment section below and I'll get to them as many as I can. So what I want you to take away from this is that there are valid reasons to consider pursuing a formal graphic design education in terms of a 4-year school, or even a 2-year associate's, or even just sporadic courses at a community college or university. There are reasons to do it yourself, learn online, use websites like Lynda, Udemy, Skillshare, Skillfeed, How University, and of course YouTube, and you can leverage that as well as blogs. There are a lot of great graphic designers who are working out in the real world, putting content out here on YouTube. I'm obviously one of them. You can also check out stuff from Steve Looney, Sean Berry, Terry White, Howard Pinsky, Karen Cavett, David DeFranco, and a whole host of other people. I need to do a video about all the graphic designers here on YouTube. I'll definitely do that. You should also make sure that you're checking out the business of graphic design in case maybe you don't necessarily want to go the agency or in-house route. Maybe you want to be a freelancer, but regardless of which one you want to do, you should check out Chris Do and Jose Caballer's videos over at The School, and they have a lot of insight to the business of graphic design. You should check that out, because if you want to work in this industry, you should understand the business associated with it, not just the design principles and tutorials and things we talk about. That's why I talk about the branding and marketing side, because that's going to help you in terms of your job approach too, especially as you scale and you grow in this industry and you look at higher level things and things beyond your first job. So, just keep that in mind and understand that any method of learning that you can leverage to create more value for yourself and to better position yourself is going to be appropriate. Don't just pick one or two ways of learning. Learn as many different ways as you can. So maybe you go to college, but then you still use online sites. You use Lynda because maybe your professors don't really know the software. They know all the principal stuff, but they're really a little dated when it comes to the Adobe stuff, and they don't know it as well. Maybe you use lynda.com and you get tutorials there so that you have superior software skills and you can design circles around your teachers when it comes to the software. Maybe you check out some stuff from people online so that you have an understanding of the real world and what it takes to actually be successful from people who are working in the industry today and have been successful, like myself and like many of the other designers that I've mentioned. Obviously, reading as many books on design as you possibly can is definitely going to be helpful for you if that's the way that you learn and you can consume. And I've done a whole other video on book recommendations for graphic designers. I'm going to be doing more of those in the future. Obviously, I'm going to be doing a review of Show Your Work. That's coming up as well. So again, reading as much information, whether it's online, from books, what have you, is definitely going to be helpful for you. I hope that this advice really, is actionable for you and that you're getting something out of it. If you still have questions, definitely leave those in the comment section below. If you have an experience where you have, not been able to get a job in the industry despite your degree, I want to know your story. So definitely make sure you're leaving that in the comment section as well, because I think people need to read that. And if academia has been good to you, I understand that. If getting a graphic design degree you feel has helped you in your career, I want to hear your stories too. Despite my view, I don't want to have a bias toward that. So leave those in the comment section below and let us know why and quantify it, please. Not just that, oh, it was expected of you. Give us a real interesting story of exactly what helped you as far as having that degree and whether you feel it's something you could have done on your own or not. Anyway, like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the other awesome content on the channel. As always, you guys, thanks so much for watching. And don't forget, create something awesome today.